This is an open letter to for Mr. Tucker Carlson and to Mrs. Maye Musk, mother of Elon. Bravo, bravo, ma'am. Uh, you have a great family, and the world is benefiting from their existence. So, bravo. Here's the thing. It's just some time ago, about a couple of months ago, I read you tweeted something like, well, you should have children even if you are poor. We were poor and we had children, and it turned out great. Okay. Uh, that's true, but okay, there's a comment here. And recently I've been listening to Mr. Carlson and reading his tweets, and it has come to my attention that he has the same issue with this situation, the same blind spot as you're having. So he's been commenting about, and he's very distressed about low-level crimes and shoplifting and this and that and the other, and how it's affecting the society, and who has relaxed the rules for these motherfuckers. Why they have relaxed the rules for these motherfuckers, and who has relaxed the rules, and who has paid for relaxing the rules for these motherfuckers, that they can get away with low-level crimes without being charged and locked behind bars. Salute to the bars. Here's the thing, Mr. Carlson, Mrs. Musk. Here's the thing. I believe Chris Rock had this routine, has little bit in his comedy routine, and everything that is there, usually there is some whiff of truth to everything these comedians say. The whiff of truth in his, that passage, that bit that he was using in his routine at some time ago, introduced me to the concept of a mustard sandwich. That is a sandwich, apparently, that when poor kids go home from school, it's a sandwich that they make when their refrigerator is empty. If there is still some stale bread, they can find somewhere, maybe even in a dumpster. If they can find some bread, in order to kill the smell of the stale, half-rotten bread, they would, put a little mustard on it, spread a little mustard on the bread, so it would kill the taste because of its, pungent odor. It would cover the taste of staleness and the taste of whatever shit that was growing on it, whatever small shit is that is growing on it. It would, remove the bad taste, and you can, you're used to the pungent odor of the mustard, so you can live with it as long as you don't throw up. It's a loss if you throw up. So well, thank God I don't have such experience. Very near it, but not exactly that. So I don't have such experience. But the idea is, more advanced societies will no longer allow that to happen. If the state finds out that you're giving mustard sandwiches to your kid 3 meals a day, or at least, or 2 meals a day, even 1 meal a day, and you're never there to actually home or at work or whatever, the state, or even if you're at work and your kid, you have 10 kids and both of the parents are working, please explain to me, Mrs. Musk, it's like both parents are working and they have 10 kids together. Is that possible? And just that exaggerated example is clear that You can't tell poor people, or the majority of people, not poor people, the majority, you can't tell the majority of people have kids when you're at such an advanced level in your social construct that the state sees themselves responsible to protect neglected kids and pull them out of these homes that neglect them. So the idea that a poor family, maybe a poor family in rural Oklahoma, Arkansas, maybe the poor family there can still have 10 kids because they feed the kids from the land and the kids are neglected, but because they're far apart from their neighbors, the law is not that strict and nobody's going to check if the parents are looking after all their kids all the time or not. And they have a couple of casualties every year, every because that, but they can get away with it because the state is not up their ass. But in crowded cities with strict enforcement of the law, you can't really be neglectful to your children, because there is a state force that comes after people who neglect their children. So what's the solution? The family has a solution that because we don't have money and we didn't mind giving mustard sandwich to our children, but now that the law doesn't let us give mustard sandwich to our children, then therefore we are not going to have children because we can't afford it, and the law tells us that we will be punished if we can't afford our responsibilities. And the law is right. You can't say, oh, let's relax the laws. Child labor, no problem. Bring it in. You can't go that way unless you go to a nuclear war and like the Germans get rid of most of you grown-ups, then you can bring back child labor. But as it is, where it is, your societies have advanced. You have way past point that you can bring back child labor. That would be, child neglect. That would be child abuse. That would be child wanting to go out and play, and you smack the child upside the head and say, tighten that bolt or pick that cotton. We are way past that point. The state would consider that child neglect, child abuse, and the state will remove the child, which probably is what should have happened to me and my family. But the point is this: because as a child, mustard sandwich is exactly where I believe that state should step in and remove, Chris Tucker, or no, it wasn't Chris Rock, it was Chris Tucker, about the mustard sandwich. Anyway, one of these guys. The experience was there. The reality is there. The child neglect, if it happens, when it happens in a worthwhile society, if you want to consider yourself a worthwhile society, when child neglect happens, child abuse happens, the state has to step in and remove. Okay, tell me, Mr. Tucker Carlson, that when, the poverty is so much that, people actually, their survival is based on low-level shoplifting. There is not enough money in my bank account, and I've taken on a responsibility, and my hourly wages, I put in 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever the employer tells me, but this 10 hours of work, whatever work I can provide based on my aptitude, if that income is not enough to raise a 10-member family or 12-member family, you still want me to? So you want me to reproduce and have the state keep taking it away? Well, that would have been okay too, but do you have vast networks of adoption warehouses where kids are raised in very good condition? We are talking about Vulcan Institute of Technology something very, you know, futuristic, with futuristic privileges. If you have those in your society, then you can say, yeah, no problem. Ladies and gentlemen, reproduce, and we know you can't afford them, so we're going to give you a leg up, and we're going to take your children into these great, you know, learning institutions from age 3. You raise them to age 3, 4, and then the government will step in and raise them in these great futuristic privileged groups. Imagine a top line private schooling, some type of top line private boarding school from in New York or around New York. If that level of care and amenities could be provided to all these children that the state removes due to neglect and abuse because the parents are not getting paid enough for their 8 or 10 hours of things that they give them to. The society gives them things to do for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and what the society provides for that 8 to 10 hours of people's time, many of them are not getting enough to raise a 10-member family to the standard that the state demands. Anything below that standard, it would be neglect. So to the standard that the state demands, his income is not such that it can meet the standards that the state demands for raising children. And the state also doesn't have those futuristic learning institutions. And you're hoping some rich people maybe adopt these poor people's kids and raise them. But there are very few of those rich people. And Elon Musk, for one, he says, no, I'm not going to adopt anybody, fuck you. You raise your own children. I'm gonna make my own. Salute. My point is this. Here's the thing, Mrs. Musk and Mr. Tucker Carlson. You have a few options. One is to take money from Mark Zuckerberg and anybody who's really, and Warren Buffett, take money from them, a whole bunch of it. It's like 90% income tax, 90% wealth tax, whatever it takes, you know. Because, you know, Jeff Bezos doesn't need a whole fucking island to himself. He's gone into the island and he's bothering every other millionaire out of the island. From now on, this is the island of billionaires. Millionaires, please step out. So that cannot happen. If you take all that money and give Jeff Bezos his parents' house back in Washington, or similar, not too much, not too extravagant. You take all that money. Yeah, I know he has the best use in mind for the money. I understand that he's the best allocator of assets, best allocator of wealth. I understand. So is Elon, and so is Mr. Warren Buffett. But the point is this: if that added productivity is not put to use, either go two ways. Provide a universal basic income. And please, Mr. Tucker Carlson, don't tell me that, no, they're selling wigs, they're stealing wigs and hair extension, and these people are, you know, they're not stealing powder, milk powder for their infants, they're stealing hair extension. Yes, but, you know, first educate them. Did you educate them well so not to value the hair extension? You didn't. That's, again, your problem. You know, this is you problem, not me problem. It's the education was not there. Why wasn't there? Because Jeff Bezos got to keep 99% of his income, or whatever, 90% of his income. But his income was sort of like a collection of added productivity of many people who have put this added productivity into this machine. But at the end, the machine is going gapping wealth out of one side and is dripping, drip, drip, drip on the other side. This machine is not dividing the added productivity that all these members of society work to put together. This added productivity is not enough for those people who are getting drips to reproduce much. Okay, so what is this drive for reproduction then? You see what I'm saying? If this added productivity that, and yes, Mr. Tucker Carlson, Obama was right in that sense that he said, yeah, you didn't make that, Mr. Cheeto manufacturer of Cheetos, you didn't get there on your own. This society put their time together, provided you with drivable roads, clean roads, and your trucks are not being held up in the middle of the roads. And we provide a kind of a secure, safe environment for you to have a fucking factory. But the Cheetos factory takes a lot more out of this society than I do. How much space I occupy and how much wealth I withdraw from that space is nowhere in comparison to Mr. Cheetos. You see where I'm going with this? So yes, they have used this society, and you Mr. Tucker Carlson, you can't really go towards it is what it is. You're not making enough. Fuck you. We're going to enforce the law. You have to, but we don't expect you to give mustard sandwiches to your kids either. You're not getting paid anymore. We expect you to have 10 kids. Also, no mustard sandwiches. I'm sorry to the Sane Society. You can't do that. You're expecting the impossible. You're expecting your people to hold up a standard that you expect, hold up a decent standard of living for their children. And then you tell them, but your income is this limited, and also, surprise, we want 10 kids out of you. Is it one solution to this is say, okay, no more, a big 2-meter canal of wealth moving into Jeff Bezos' island and wealth dripping in Jeff Bezos' employees. No more of that. We're gonna close Bezos' canal and let a small stream of water pass through, and then we're going to divert most of that wealth into these other faucets that these average people in your societies are drinking from. And in doing so, we're going to then encourage them to have kids, for example, or whatever. Be good people and don't steal because your basic needs are met. And also, we're going to educate you well enough so you wouldn't value hair extensions, so you wouldn't steal them. If you do steal, you steal necessities because of good education that we have provided you, which also need more money. Jeff Bezos doesn't need more money, but education does. Maybe not education department, but I don't know. But your people are not making enough for education. And please don't tell me that they can get better work, more work, they can rise. My postman is overqualified. He can qualify as a intelligence agent, but he's doing a postal route, and the system has provided him enough to to have one kid, and he has done the best he could, and that's it. I think if the system had provided, first of all, so this better jobs business, in most of your job, people are overqualified. I'm not talking, people are overqualified. That's why your children can no longer work for the summer in Burger King or McDonald's, because There is a 55-year-old manager. I visit one, a checkers business. There is like a 50, 60-year-old manager who's on his knees all day long, who I believe he's overqualified. And then there is an assistant manager, a 35-year-old assistant manager who is also overqualified. And they have these other employees who are also overqualified. There is no room for a 15-year-old for a summer job. I'm not sure what are you looking at, what statistics are you looking at, because you have overqualified people doing very simple jobs and you're still short on jobs, income. But the job that is being done is not paying for 12 kids, for 8 kids, for 6 kids. I kind of think my postman would like to have 4 kids. Would like to have 4 kids. But the state demands a standard of living for these children that my income from postal service is not enough. Doesn't cover it. Doesn't cover the necessities that the state expects from me to provide to these children. If that doesn't happen, if my basic income from the job, the talent that I have, that I'm overqualified for, but the income that I get is not enough to raise 12 kids, and the state, maybe 12 kids in some backwoods, which neglect is and abuse is normal, maybe 12 you could raise 12 kids there, in swamps of Louisiana. Maybe you can have 12 kids there in those back swamps because the state is not up your ass bothering you about neglect and abuse. And you lose 1 kid a year. And the state wouldn't know either. But my point is this. That's no longer the case. In crowded cities where the law is up your ass all the time, you can't neglect or abuse your kids. And mustard sandwiches, low quality of life due to low income is neglect. And the state comes and removes some of your responsibilities because you can't meet your responsibilities, because the state also has decided that your income should be only enough to feed yourself. Don't bring anybody else into this world, just feed yourself. And the likes of Elon, who has all this, added productivity added in his, gold chest, he is saying, no, don't expect me to put money into this education business, raising the next generation. I just expect people to have more kids, but then they have to figure out how to feed them. As I said, people are already all overqualified for the jobs that they're doing. And what they're doing is not paying enough for them to raise 12 kids at the standard as the advanced state demands. And then state sees neglect and abuse, removes the child, and then the child goes into this, shitty business of moving from this house to that house to that house to that house, while we know that a good boarding school in Connecticut would, could do much better. And then a good summer camp in Boy Scouts could make better kids, raise better next generation. But you don't do it. You leave it to the adoption system of sometimes you're temporarily adapted and then you're permanently adapted. And then let's go start some war somewhere and get these people killed because we don't want to share our wealth with them. It's the Sane Society. Here's the thing, Mr. Tucker Carlson. Those low-level crimes, the reason they're being let go is that these prosecutors, I have a feeling, yes, they're left-leaning. Okay, why are they left-leaning? Because The facts on the ground tells these prosecutors that these people are very from the digits that they receive from their working place, or they don't have enough aptitude. Here's the thing, that you go to Fox News, Fox News, you and your friends kept on blaming people for, not having a job. The system does not have a job with an income enough that meets the person's aptitude. And one reason was the educational system. The educational system didn't value the person's aptitude. And second is because your system, it's not the citizen's fault, it's your system has moved on from those aptitudes that are only, those jobs that require only physical aptitudes. And those jobs that require only, emotional aptitudes. We only have jobs that only require cognitive aptitude. How many kids can Elon Musk have? I mean, the idea that's the other way that it seems you're going. You're going to the direction of that, yeah, we want everybody who's intelligent to have 12 kids, and you show your intelligence by having the kind of aptitude that we are looking for, that is cognitive aptitude. And you have to somehow find your place in this system that values very few aptitudes. As such, so you don't expect all your people to have kids. So Elon is going to open up a haram sarah. That's what the Middle Eastern call what a rich man builds is a haram sarah. That is, big house with 250 women in there, so he can have one kid a night with every one of them. But the point is this, that's the other way to go. That's the monarchic system. That's the feudal system. The boss has a haram sarah and half the population cannot reproduce. And the boss is trying to make up for the lack of reproduction from the main society. You can do that, but with the advancement of even AI, you really don't require people with cognitive aptitude. Forget about physical aptitude and emotional. You didn't want them right up to now. Physical and emotional aptitude. You're going the direction you're going, you're no longer going to need anybody with cognitive aptitude either. That's why my postman can actually has the aptitude of being an intelligence agent. You don't require so many intelligence agents, so he's got to be a postman. And the income, good enough for a family of 3, having 1 kid. You want better? Raise his pay to the point that he can have 12 kids and go a vacation a year and be able to pay for 12 kids. I think he loves to have 12 kids. But then tell me we're going to pay you so you can raise these kids with the standard of living that the state expects. No neglect and abuse, of course. But that's the thing, you're not doing that. And Mrs. Maye Musk says, no, you're poor, you can have kids even if you're poor. Yes, in the backwoods you can. Not when the state is, up your ass all the time. And can actually incriminate you. The system can criminalize you, make you a criminal by, slapping a ticket of, neglect and abuse on you. The system must pay so I can raise good healthy children. So the solution that so far you have come up with, that is, okay, we want everybody to reproduce, but poor people, if you can't afford it, don't reproduce. We have few rich people who can afford it, so they should reproduce with as many women as they can. That's one way to go. The other way, which is not a sustainable way, the other way to go is to Universal basic income, Mr. Tucker Carlson. Give them universal basic income. Uh, take the money out of the very wealthy in order to balance the money going out and the money coming in. How much the money coming in, you have to, the government actually has to be the balance between the rich and the poor. That is, the government takes from the rich, that is the balance. If the governments cannot take from the rich and spread between the poor so the poor can have a standard of living and raise the next generation better, if the government doesn't do that, the rich don't want to give it away. And charities are charities. It's like, I have to feel like it. No, I'm not getting a hard on today. I don't feel like it. Or, I'm planning to, also send a rocket to Pluto. So, I'm sorry. I think that is better allocation of assets. Okay, fine. But then the state is left with empty pockets, having to take care of people who have empty pockets and the children who are being neglected because their parents have empty pockets and the government is not supposed to print money. The government doesn't print money. The people, their wages for the jobs that they're doing 8 to 10 hours a day, their wages is not enough to have 12 kids, which is ideal, or 5 kids or 6 kids. It's not that. They cannot have that, and if they do those many kids, they cannot keep the standard of living to the degree that the state expects, and the state is going to take these kids off their hand and put through a confusing and unfortunately, unclear adoption system to leave it to families to adopt, and hopefully those families are good families. Put it up all to luck. So in reality, Mr. Tucker Carlson, the solution, one of the solutions could be universal basic income. That's exactly the money that you're taking away. You tell Mr. Jeff Bezos, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, that you're taking too much of the productivity of the society. You're using the roads and all other things that go along for us as a society to provide you with the settings so you can do your business and put together so much wealth. Well, as a society, we want you to relinquish 90% of this gush of income stream. You relinquish that, and we take that and we put it in the income stream of all these other people, the 90% of the population, the 95% of the population, and and then we ask them to raise large families with high standard of living because now they can afford it, because now they're part owner of Jeff Bezos' business. That's the solution. I'll take all these stocks from these companies and give it to people and tell them you cannot sell these stocks, you can only collect dividends if you want to go the capitalist way. So, the guy, my postman, receives a certain number of, Amazon stocks from the government, has taken it from Amazon, given to him, and say, here's your stocks in Amazon, you cannot sell them, but you can only collect dividends from it. And okay, and your dividends comes to, $1 million a year. Therefore, now you can, based on today's numbers, you can raise a 12-member family. So go ahead and have 10 kids. That's one way to go. It's a complicated way of distributing Amazon stocks, for example, or Facebook stocks amongst the population. It's a capitalist, very clumsy way of trying to achieve an objective of universal basic income, if you don't want to go that route. But in order for a healthy society, there must be some kind of relevant. In order to have a healthy, growing society, you must have some kind of a relevant income equality, income relevance. We are talking about billions of dollars a year for some people and thousands of dollars a year for other people. Some kind of relevance. It's not there. And don't tell me so you have big, large numbers of kids when this relevance is not there. Again, because, especially once you pick up responsibility of children, the state expects a certain standards. And that doesn't mean Mr. J.D. Vance to bring down those standards, or Mr., I think Rand Paul said something about child labor, and you should, relax child labor. Sir, that's a mark of an advanced society. Child labor laws is a mark of an advanced society, because you don't want to abuse children. You want the children to have some kind of fun in this life. You want children to have some kind of a free time to think in this life. You don't want to put them to work at 5. You know how materialistic these children will grow up if you put them to work at 5? Salute. So it's in your hand. The solution of this, if you have so many kids and the rest never mind, it's not a really doable solution. It creates a lot of friction in the society. It creates a lot of friction in society when income inequality is so vast. It creates friction, and no more police and fascist police does not help, Mr. Musk. No, we have to, Mr. Carson, we have to crack down. Okay, crack down. You're cracking down on people who don't have enough money to purchase the basics. The government doesn't provide it. The government doesn't take from the rich and fill the coffers of these people who are getting very little income from the aptitude that they have and the education that the system has provided them. Therefore, they're having very little income. What part of it is their fault? Personal responsibility, Mr. Tucker Carlson, again, goes back to, if you're living in the swamps of Louisiana, you can say as much, everything becomes personal responsibility. If you're living in the swamps of Louisiana, everything becomes personal responsibility, and the state is not up your ass. So you take responsibility for what you can, and you have some waste due to neglect and abuse, and you don't get punished for it. But personal responsibility in large, densely populated cities, personal responsibility becomes a little irrelevant. And you can't outlaw the cities. That's the problem. You can't outlaw cities, but personal responsibility is a little irrelevant in a large city. It's mostly about collective responsibility. That's why, in Nigeria, things don't work well, but in Tokyo, things work very well. Because they take it as a collective responsibility living in a large city, because they are used to living in very large cities for a very long time. So they understand the concept of collective responsibility. They don't in Nigeria, because they have been living in cities for a shorter period of time, and good for them. And good for them because they have remained free of, boundaries of city life for a longer period of time. But now they have to get used to the boundaries of city life, the boundaries that the law sets and and enforces. So my point is this, that the sane choice is universal basic income. And based on how many kids you want the families to have, you have to increase that universal basic income. Basically say, okay, if you have one kid, here's this much more. It's like $10,000 more a year. And you have a second kid, this is another 10,000. If you have the third kid, we give you, bonus plus another $10,000. That's how you distribute universal basic income if you actually want to, populate your planet more and maybe take some people to Mars and beyond. To do that, you have to provide basic income for the child, or the state takes the responsibility. And no, Mr. Tucker Carlson, you can't, prosecute too many poor people. Okay, start prosecuting. You have a police state, which is everything is policed very well. And the peasants are living very poorly with very few kids because they can't afford it. Is that the objective? A very well policed state, that every crime is very well prosecuted, but the people don't have enough income to have a comfortable life with big families. But we make sure all these poor people are prosecuted. And they cannot give mustard sandwiches to their kids, which is really not good. So what are you advocating? You're giving families income to raise one kid, they're raising one kid without neglect. You want them to raise more kids without neglect and abuse. You have to give them more money. Where does it come from? If the government prints, becomes inflation. But if the government takes from the rich and gives to the poor to have kids, for example, then everything will work out fine and there won't be no inflation. What the Democrats have come up with is really, they don't want, because Democrats also have rich donors. Their solution is, okay, we don't want to charge the donors for running the society well, so we're going to stop prosecuting poor people for doing small crimes to meet their basic needs. Or, in case of her extension, we're not going to take money from the rich to educate these people so they wouldn't value things that are not necessities of life, such as hair extension. You see where I'm going with this? Basically, the Democrats have also came to the conclusion that no, we Republicans don't take from the rich. We also don't want to take from the rich because they're all donors as well. So neither party wants to take from the rich, but nobody wants inflation. And everybody blames the inflation on government printing. Yes, Mr. Massey, inflation is because of government printing, yes. But that is also because the money that is taken from the rich, money is not taken from the rich to, add to the income of the poor so they can have more children. That money is not taken from the rich. Whatever money that is taken from the rich is made into missiles in order to protect the periphery of the empire. So the rich are not paying. That little that they are paying is going to the military in order to expand the empire of the rich. Again, the money is not going to educate the poor people's children or give poor people to have more kids. That money is not going to that. So what the government does, what the Democrats were doing, was printing money, handing it out, which creates inflation. What Trump did during the pandemic. You print and spread, because you're not taking from the rich. You have to print your own. Government has decided to print some money and give to the poor because the rich are not giving it back. Print some money, give it to the poor, and then stop prosecuting them for low-level economic crimes such as shoplifting. And still it doesn't help because morale goes down because the poor are, shoplifting, they're mustard sandwiches, they're shoplifting that, eating that, and in despair that they never have a family or never have a good quality of life, because the government's, whatever government provides is, at this point, is less than basics. So what do you do if you don't want to take from the rich? You let poor commit some low-level crimes, and then you don't prosecute them, and you basically go on. The right thing for the Democrats to have done, if they weren't getting money from the rich, was to say, no, none of this shit. We're going to prosecute low-level crimes, but we're also going to take 90% of income from Mr. Warren Buffett. 90% of income is going to the government. Fuck you, 10% is enough. Take that 90% and distribute that money amongst the poor who are not getting that added productivity that Warren Buffett is getting today. Those people who are not getting that added productivity, who are getting shit for their 8 to 10 hours of work a day, we are going to add this. We are going to actually give Warren Buffett's share to them. And they can't sell it, and they only have to live by, it's profits of the shares, or there's a specific word for it. Income stream that shares of Warren Buffett's company creates. But again, either universal basic income or this backhanded way of distributing the shares of your corporations amongst your poor. If you want everybody in your society to have many kids, yeah, the fault was with Democrats. They didn't. They went about this backhanded way of instead of taking money from the rich, they decided to go with let the poor commit some crimes if they need to make ends meet, than us having to go after our donors. That was the problem. You always need a party representing the poor and a party representing the rich, so they shall meet in the middle somewhere. If you have to continue with this capitalism business, but the poor, the masses don't have a representative at your tables. They just don't. Trump is the closest representative that all these poor people have at the table. And imagine how bad your system is that the Trump is the closest representative that the poor masses have at the table. Because, the day that he went, for example, I'm saying the day that he went and, fried those fries, is at least him trying to act like a poor man. Put himself in the poor man's shoes for a couple of hours. You see, even his acting of putting himself in the poor man's shoes won him an election. Even acting it. Imagine how would it be, if Democrats, that's the thing, Democrats don't want to win at any price. This is the problem with Democrats. They don't want to win at any price. They don't want to win if they have to turn their back to their donors and embrace the labor. They don't want to do that. They could have, they just don't. The Democrats do not really want to win at any price. They want to win at a price that makes their donor happy. If their donors are not happy, the Democrats are more than happy to lose. That's why Mrs. Clinton lost. That's why Bernie Sanders lost. Because Democrats were not willing to go there. The Democrat establishment is not willing to go with labor. I just, recently saw an interview between Mr. Jon Stewart and some battle axe named Penske, some man-eater. Well, with red hair. Well, no disrespect. That was my impression. I could have been wrong. I could be wrong. I'm wrong often. But I felt she was a battle axe, and she never kept. John Stewart kept on saying that maybe our approach is wrong, but nope, she wouldn't have any of it. She continuously tried to blame the gears of the machine. That this gear was wrong and that gear was wrong. That's why we lost, and that's why. Instead of turning and saying that, oh, Jon Stewart was trying to keep sending her. Apparently, she was a previous White House spokesperson, Penske something, or something Penske, a woman. She kept on trying to blame some individuals in the Democratic Party or some gears, some functions, some basically messaging. When you blame the messaging, that's basically when you say I am a saint, and if you misunderstood me, it's probably because of the messaging, because I couldn't be wrong because I'm a saint. So if you misunderstood me, it must have been my messaging. That's the approach of the Democratic establishment. They don't want to move away from their donors. They don't want to work for labor, because working for labor means, you might not make as much money. In terms of, when you defend the interest of the rich, you get paid well. That's the difference between the highly paid lawyer, who obviously defends the rich, and a very lowly paid worker who defends the poor. You don't see any lawyer defending the poor get very wealthy. There's no money in it. The clients are not rich, so you're not going to be rich. That's the situation. The dilemma with the Democratic Party is that their clients they want rich clients, because that's the only way they can get rich. If you have rich associates, rich clients, and that would be the donors of the Democratic Party. They don't want to be associated with poor people, the Democratic Party. So poor people in the United States, those people who you cannot afford a 10-member, 12-member house, Mrs. Musk, those people do not have any representative at the table. So they have one kid. That's how they can afford. And that's why most of them have turned into a Republican Party, because, they think at least this guy goes into the McDonald's and fries some fries and, lives in our shoes for a couple of hours at least. It's a show, I know, but, since the Democrats did not even want to act like they're for the poor. Or if they do, they act like they're for the poor, but they always, Democrats voting for extension of war and arming Taiwan and arming Filipino and arming this and arming that and getting ready. We are the best thing. We are the military. We are the best. We're getting ready to kick some ass. This is the Democrats. Sort of like, whose army do you think this is? This is the army of rich people going to spread the periphery of the empire for the benefit of the rich people, while you're staying away from the labor and neglecting your poor Democratic Party. Because there's no money in defending any rights for the poor. The poor don't have enough money to pay themselves. Salute. Mr. Tucker Carlson, please provide some UBI for your people and educate them well. you will not have a problem such as low-level shoplifting. Educate them well and provide basic income, basic necessities. Provide them with some Warren Buffett share. Provide them a way for them to raise large families, and then ask them to raise large families, but not as is.